All right, everybody, we are back again for another episode of the Coach's Compass. As always, hit that subscribe, like, comment button down below so we can continue to help this thing grow and continue to get this thing going in the right direction and bringing on special guests each and every week. It's your boy, Coach Coop. My boy Jay's got practice right now, so it's me riding solo, but we got another special guest with us all the way from the United States. We got our boy, Coach Nate. He's a director of strength and conditioning for Weber International University, working with all 21 sports, but mainly focusing on the basketball program, and that is down in Florida. He has certifications as a CSCS, ACSM CES, a USAW, and an APCC. He is also a former hooper himself, once a hooper, always a hooper, and I would say arguably the best job in the world, also a father to a 10-year-old and a recent 6-year-old. So he's getting back from Disney, and we know how the schedules is with coaches and just life in general is crazy. So welcome, brothers. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, man. I love that intro, so I appreciate that.
Of course, man. So I mean, it's a huge month right now. It's June, it's Men's Mental Health Month. First of all, how are you doing, bro? Like, like I love checking in with the people and seeing how like we're doing, like mentally, physically, and just like all across the board.
Yeah, man. I'm doing well. So the summer, what I love about my job in coaching is the summer is my time to spend with my family from August until May. It's just all about the athletes, but it gives me about 2.5, 3 months of just relaxing, chilling with my family, spending some time, some quality time with my wife. So that brings me joy. Reading, researching, working out, all that stuff keeps me at peace. So it's been going well.
So you get a little bit of downtime in the summer, right? A little bit of time to actually live life. What is the college scene like now, and how did you even get into the college scene?
Yeah, so I actually I'm a graduate of the University of Central Florida. Exercise science was the major. After that, I didn't understand what a strength and conditioning coach essentially was. So I was doing the private sector first. So I was training NBA players, professional basketball players during the summer, which is great. Obviously, the pay is well, but again, you're just working with them for 3 months and then that's it. So for me, I had to get a obviously a job a little bit more stable. So I wanted to bring my experience to the college athletes. So that's when I got the role of director of strength and conditioning at Weber International University. So I'm coming up on my third year.
So you went from literally working in the private sector and then working with NBA and high level guys to straight into being the director of strength and conditioning at a university. Can you tell us more about Weber International itself, and then also how do you even get that role? Because that's a big role to jump into after just working in the private sector.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I was thinking about that the other day. To this day, I don't know how I qualified. I was able to get a face to face with the AD. He liked what I had to say, like my experience, and just hired me on the spot. So I'm very fortunate, very lucky. Actually, prior to getting the director of strength and conditioning, and I always tell this to up and coming strength coaches, prior to getting that director of strength and conditioning at the NAI Weber International University. I didn't get hired as a high school performance coach at one of these local high schools. So, but I didn't let that stop me. Better stuff was on the horizon, and then who know, the director of strength and conditioning job opened up. So I'm very fortunate. So yeah, I guess he just liked my experience, liked how I talk with other coaches, got to see kind of how I coached, and just again hired me right on the spot. So, and what I like about this field and my journey, and I'm sure you can relate, everybody's journey is different. So there's no direct path to where you want to be at. For me, the ultimate goal obviously is to work at the highest level possible, 14, which is the NBA or a high caliber Power 5 Division 1 program. But again, everybody's journey is different. It may take a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter. So, just stick to it. And that's my little advice that I have.
I completely agree with that because no path is actually the same. You're trying to follow one person's path that you're going to go astray each and every way. But it's super interesting that you don't even get a call back from these high schools, but now
Right.
you end up at the university, the university level. Like you take a step above, right? So you're like one step closer to kind of the final goal of like what you're trying to achieve. But what is a day to day like with being the director of strength and conditioning?
So I'll start now. As far as kind of what my responsibility day to day is for the summer. Now, again, we talked about before from August until May. is all about the athletes. But during the summertime, it's all about me and getting better. A lot of conferences, a lot of talking with other coaches. I just came back to from the University of Oregon, just talking shop with their strength coach, Coach Cliff, who's had prior NBA experience. He's worked for the Utah Jazz, the Phoenix Suns. He's been in the league for 5 years, and right now he's at University of Oregon. And then prior to that, talking with Montverde High School and their program and their basketball guys. So for me, during the summer, again, going to conferences, educating myself, and that's what I like about my job as a coach is the fact that you never know everything. So for me, I'm big on learning and picking people's brain, reading the research. So that's what I like to do during the summer. I'm probably in the office maybe once or twice and meeting some recruits. Just met a recruit on Monday for basketball, a nice 7-1 transfer that we like kind of looking to get a hold of. So during the summer, it's actually pretty quiet. Again, I don't have to be in the office maybe once or twice. And then from August until May, we have our volleyball, we have our soccer programs coming in. We're doing our assessments. And then from that, it's just repetitive, just working them out, doing the assessments. And again, that don't stop until May. Christmas breaks, there's really not none. Thanksgiving breaks, there really is not none. Spring breaks, again, there's really not none as well. So it's a full-time job, 24/7 job. You're working like 60 plus hours. But again, I love what I do. I love working with the athletes.
I know a lot of that college life. There is no break, so it's actually it's 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 wild to hear. It's like say that you get summer off. Is you guys get summer off? Is that because there is no is there a football program there? Is that why there's no
Yeah, so we
summer?
actually have a director of football operations who falls underneath me, but he oversees the whole football program. They actually don't start until July, so I'll be going
Okay,
in there just to kind of obviously watch and give my input on some of that stuff. But they actually have their own strength and conditioning guy that they listen to. He's a strength coach slash defensive coach. But yeah, they'll
okay.
be rolling in July. So again, for me and my role, again, just touching base with our AD, hiring staff, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, as the director of strength and conditioning, what does that role entail? Because most of the guys that get into strength and conditioning are usually just you're with one sport or you're in the weight room all the time and you're working with different sports. But for you, you're the director of it, and then you're mostly, like you say, you do assessments of all these different sports, but mostly you're working with basketball. How does it work with just being the director?
Yeah, so I mean, you wear a lot of hats, right? Not only are you responsible for coaching, but you're also responsible for the hiring of the staff, overseeing the internship program, overseeing the budget as far as like new equipment and stuff like that, and also building relationships with coaches and your athletic director. It's not for the faint of heart. Obviously, it's not for everybody. But going into my third year, obviously, I've gotten better over time. But yeah, there's 5 or 6 different hats that you wear.
That's a lot to juggle, especially talking about the hiring process. Year one, you come in as a director, and then you've got to hire people, and now you're on year three. What was it like at first when you're wearing that hat of like you're sitting in there doing interviews and you're looking for people that are qualified or maybe have more experience or looking at their certifications? What goes into finding the right fit, and how tough was it to tell somebody no or tell somebody yes?
Yeah, so for me, first year is totally different than this year because I actually got the job late. I didn't get hired till like the second week of July. Kids started to roll in August 1st. So it's just learning on the fly. I had to hire. I was able to fortunate to get about 4 assistant strength coaches within that time frame. The hiring process is a little bit different than now, just because we needed some bodies. But all of them are all qualified. They're just looking to get that coaching, get that coaching voice and get that coaching experience. Now I usually start the process in April. I get to screen out maybe some stuff that I feel like is not a good fit. My thing is are you a good human? Who can I tell that through Zoom call? To me, that's probably the best attribute you can have. Can you connect with individuals? What is your story? As far as like the experience is concerned, just based off the fact that I got hired with no college experience, I empathize with those individuals that are trying to get those assistant strength coach positions. So I'm very flexible with that. But again, being a good human, everybody's qualified. Everybody is more than qualified with their CSCS, with their background, high caliber experience working at the Division 1 level. So for me, I'm looking for the human aspect of the coaches.
That's awesome to hear because, lately most of the time you don't get hired for jobs unless, you've got a master's, you've got experience, you're working here, there, and another. But how do people even get that experience if they're not given the opportunity? Right? Like you
Correct.
said yourself, like you were passed over by high schools, but then you get a college opportunity because you're a good human. Like he saw your
Right.
work, he saw what you're doing, but on top of that, you're a good person. Like so
Right.
kudos to you for like looking past that and like actually giving, this younger generation and these newer coaches coming in and just trying to get footing in an
Right.
opportunity. But on top of that, you got to work on the other side of things too. Like, how tough has it been to kind of see a good coach go, but also like on the other side, letting people go too?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough job as part of the job, but for me, I'm big on again the human aspect. To me, I'm always asking the athletes how is your coach just as a human being? Are they treating you with respect? Are they detail oriented? Is everything set up and broken down? The little stuff like that I think makes a great coach. I think is huge for me. So it's even for me. I'm constantly being judged from a day to day, month to month, in which I like. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you up to date with the latest research, and it also keeps the athlete and the athlete's feedback first and foremost. For me, I view this as a customer service job. I'm working with the athlete. So for me, just trying to tell coaches that, hey, man, you're always underneath a microscope and just kind of watch what you're doing, your mannerisms, how you approach, how you talk to a walk on, or how you talk to the best player. They need to be treated the same. So for me, that's very important.
Yeah, and then we also know the college world right now has gotten a little crazy. Right? You've got NIL deals, you've got the transfer portal, all that stuff. How have you dealt with that? And we can just talk specifically working with basketball or even all the
Right.
sports, because
Right.
it's tough. You get a guy that comes into the freshman year and you're trying to like, so you think, hey, I got 4 years to develop them or 3 years. Basketball's a little bit different. Sometimes they leave after two or one.
Right.
Uh, how has it been to try to like develop and keep guys in the system, and then when you get a transfer in too, it's tough because they come from somewhere completely different that might be preaching and working one thing, and now you're having to
Right.
remold or refix it.
Yeah, to only look at it as from one side as far as like for us, because we've definitely lost some guys last year. Actually, our last year was the best season we've had in the last actually forever since the program initiated. So we were able to get our NAI national tournament bid for the first time in program history. Obviously, with that comes other problems as far as other guys wanting to leave and go to the Division 1 and Division 2. So they always have my support. Again, that's the human side of me where hey, I'm gonna have your back regardless. But we also benefited from the transfer portal as well. We've gotten some Division 1 players as well. We've gotten quite a few Division 1 players that want more roles, that want more responsibilities, that want to be the guy, maybe at the lower level. So we've definitely benefited from that. So for me, I think it's important to look at it both ways, not just from a negative, but also from a positive, and make the best out of it. Again, my job first time they come in August, maybe some voluntary workouts is again to get to know them as an individual, and I want them to get to know me as an individual. Again, this is a customer service job. Trying my best to reach out to their coaches, their strength coaches, to kind of try to get a feel for who they are. I think that's very important. But again, I think we're probably going to have 8 or 9 guys coming in from this upcoming season. So it's an adjustment, but the last 2 years have allowed me to kind of adjust to that, and again, may the best team win. So
Man, 8 or 9 new guys coming in, fresh new faces. I remember what it was like when, playing college football. You get the whole wave of freshmen that come in, and you got a few guys that transfer in. And even I was a transfer guy. I transferred from Wake Forest, went over to Charlotte, and just seeing like, what I was doing at Wake, completely different than what I was doing at Charlotte. With the strength and conditioning side of things, and having to relearn stuff. But what's it like to, because you worked with NBA guys and now you're working with
right.
college guys. What's the biggest difference in, training basketball players compared to every other sport?
I think it's the mental side. For me, again, I've only had experience working with basketball. To say I've worked with any other sport aside from like maybe a high school football guy, I'll be lying. But I know the mental side of basketball to be the elite of the elite. And we're talking about 12 to 15 guys on each team, 450 players each year that plays in the NBA. So for me, there has to be more intangible stuff than just the physical capabilities and the skills. So for me, in my journey, I think that was probably the best for me, just to realize how the mindset and the work ethic and the consistency. So that allowed me to grow as a coach to realize, hey man, like it's just not for everybody. And I bring that to the college setting. I treat everybody the same. I treat this like a pro program where everything is going to be set up. It's going to be communicated. I expect you to communicate with me. And for the most part, they've done a great job. You may have like one or two guys that may kind of venture off and do their own thing. But me as a coach, again, is to take care of the human side first, and then kind of build those physical and mental capabilities as well.
I mean, obviously these guys should be taking what you're saying seriously because you've trained guys that have been at the level that majority of these guys are trying to make it to. Right?
Right,
Like
right.
you train NBA guys. So coming back down to the college level of trying to preach like, hey, what it takes to be elite and actually make it to the pros. Like there's so many other steps that you guys have to make. And the guys that do believe in it, buy into it, you see them get the fruit of their labor. Right. And then you got the guys that kind of go the other way. What's it like to try to bring those other guys back along with the rest of the team? Because it's sometimes, coaches are just like, oh, forget it, they're a cancer, we'll cut them out. Some other coaches are like, no, we're gonna find a way to get them to buy in and also be along with the team so it's all heading in the right direction. What approach do you take?
Yeah, for me, again, that's why it's so important for me to get to know these guys. Right, they come from different backgrounds, different upbringings, single parent households. I can empathize with that. From places, low income places, again, I can empathize with that. So for me, seeing that side, not just talking about weights and basketball, but with that, once you build a rapport with the players, it allows me to do my job better. Meaning, if I got to get on a guy and he knows I come from a good place, a good heart, he can kind of take that criticism. And again, my experience working with the top players obviously helps as far as like recruiting and the player buy-in. But again, I just try to take care of the human side opposed to the athlete. And once you build that, I think it makes my job easier.
So then we work on the athlete side. Some of the common before we even talk about program, what are some of the common things that you're assessing, and what are some of the common injuries that you see with basketball players?
Yeah. So for me, the game itself is an assessment. That's how I look at it. So whenever they have open runs, before I'm able to get a hands on them, I want to see how they are, right? I want to see how they move, and I want to see little stuff like, are they a leader? Are they going to be communicative? What's their competitive edge? So I know what buttons to push. So for me, the game itself of basketball is an assessment. So I write down my notes based on the open gym, and then obviously once we get into practices and stuff like that, based on coaching philosophy and skill level, I can assess that way. So for me, that's probably the best assessment. But we also do our non-counter movement jumps, our squat jumps. We have our strength tests, our power tests, speed and agility, that type of stuff. But for me, the best assessment is watching them play their sport where they're most comfortable.
And because I'm still kind of learning the whole basketball scene and everything myself, what are good measurements for a lot of these guys? If we're talking, verticals, we're talking their lateral movements, the squat numbers. What are the numbers that you're trying to see that you can develop on, and then when you get a guy in that's just like a freak of an athlete, like what are some of those measurements like?
So our best player last year was a 5'9" point guard who came from a couple of Division I programs, super skillful. He actually didn't do any of the workouts that I prescribed, right? I tried my best to talk to him. Hey man, what I probably could have done a better job in getting to know him a little bit more. Again, just coming from different schools. But he was our best player. He was our all conference. He was so for me, it got me to kind of look at what role do I have as far as the weight room and how does that apply to the game of basketball? Obviously, it does help as far as getting bigger, stronger, faster. But now we're kind of looking at athletes and kind of categorizing them not only on positions, because now it's a positionless game, but also elastic athletes and muscular driven athletes. When we talk about elastic driven athletes, those are our skinny guys, right? Those are the guys that typically any coach would be like, yeah, they need to hit the gym. But if you kind of look at it and looking at their open runs, they excel. So for me to add any type of muscle to kind of slow them down, I don't think it'll be beneficial. So for me, that's why I always kind of say looking at the game itself is a metric. And then we have our muscular driven guys who might be slow on their feet. In the game of basketball, again, you need to be able to switch. You got to have elite change of direction. You got to be able to decel. So for me, kind of bridge that gap between the elastic driven athletes and those muscular driven athletes is will be the goal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, basketball is one of those sports where you got to be constantly going up and down the court, jumping, moving side to side. Like it's a nonstop thing. For us football players, a lot of people will say, "Well, we got rest time in between each play and all that stuff."
Right,
But we're playing a heavy impact sport, so
right, right.
a little bit different of a game. So as hard to say and good to learn. What you guys are doing is different from like what we're doing on this side. But what are you seeing a lot of these kids are missing when they're coming into college? You know what I mean? Because I mean, if we look at the athletes back then, what their build was like, and even you said like some of the athletes now we're looking more at their muscular builds. You got a taller, skinny guy that's kind of can just go, and you got people that are a little heavier on their feet. What is that? What is that like for you?
Yeah, the game is fast. The guys are physical. The game is fast, and when I mean physical, they're basketball strong. So we're not talking about big, massive guys, 245 that can really big tree trunk legs. We're talking about basketball strong. So for me, at this level, just because of the transfer portal, and we are getting those Division 1 athletes, the game is super fast. So I think even at the open runs, guys that are coming from the junior college and even some high school, they realize like the guys here are at a totally different level, even at the NAI level where we have a lot of those transfers coming in. Again, just working on their skills has always been obviously a big thing for me. Guys want to get into the gym, and which I love. But again, I see it from a different angle, meaning if you can play the game and you're strong enough for your position, then we can kind of tweak what we do in the weight room.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be super important for guys coming in. And then I saw something that you posted today, right? That was talking about athleticism. What is athleticism?
Yeah, well, when people think about athleticism, if we're talking about the NBA, we're thinking about those John Morants, those Anthony Edwards. Elite athleticism was also those Luka Doncic's, those James Harden, Kyrie Irving, who are able to decel, change the direction, and get to the basket. So for me, athleticism, I think, needs to be looked at in terms of basketball from a different perspective, right? We're not only looking at the guys that can jump the highest, but we're also looking at the guys that can change direction and those breaking forces are elite. Luka Doncic and Harden are great elite breakers. Breaking forces are 99%. We wouldn't necessarily consider them athletic or athleticism, but again, those elite decelerators and those change of direction athletes are making the game change. And there's actually latest research that says those numbers, those eccentric force mean numbers, as far as like deceleration and change of direction, those are the guys that are getting the most playing time and increase their player efficiency. So not only do you have to jump high and excel in that aspect, but you also have to be skillful, and you also have to change direction and decel at the head of a dime or the change of a dime. So
And how are they able to measure all those, decel numbers and everything like that, like especially during game time?
yeah, I think first and foremost, obviously looking at the film, looking at how they play, but also looking at the force plate numbers. There's so many metrics that you can get from force plates, but one of the five metrics that I think are important are those eccentric breaking, are those breaking forces.
God, sheesh. And you guys are doing all this stuff at Weber International right now, right?
So we don't have our force plates now, but I'm able to kind of get those numbers and kind of bucket those athletes based on our jump mat. So I just take their non-counter movement jump with the arm swing and compare that to just a static jump. And it's called the EUR, so eccentric utilization ratio. There's a formula that you input. You just kind of divide the numbers and you get a number out. And then I kind of categorize them based on that number.
Ah, okay. That's impressive. So because a lot of the people at the higher levels, right, have access to all these things. What are some limitations that you have, at the NAIA level that you don't have like full access to, but are still able to make these guys great?
I'm gonna say none. I think it's my job to be as creative as I can, to use the jump mat, to use our velocity based training to the best of our ability. I love the force plays. I love the data that's coming out there, but I think sometimes it takes away from the coach's eye. I think people want to just put them on the force plays right away, but I think watching the game itself, watching open runs, watching practices, and being there every single day, that can tell a lot about a player.
You're spending a lot of days like at the court and watching these guys at their open runs. Like when you're out there eyeing things, like what are you like really like what's the main detail? I mean, you said leadership and you said, seeing how they act on the court and all that stuff. But like what is something that you're specifically like honing in on when you're watching them on these open runs?
I think the moneymaker in any college and any coach would say defense is everything. So for me, I'm trying to compare the left side to the right side. There's those adductors. And if they're able to get past an opponent on the left side opposed to the right side or vice versa, I can use that to say, all right, I can individualize the program. I'm like, hey, you're not as strong going to your left or cutting off an opponent on the left or cutting off an opponent on the right. Let's get and work on the adductors with tilted lateral movement. So stuff like that, being able to decel, being able to shoot the ball, they're getting enough lift on their shot. So stuff like that, to me, again, those are our stuff that I look for.
Nice. And then when you talk about adductors, what are some of the exercises you're doing to help them with those lateral movements when you're seeing them weaker or deficient at one side than the other?
Yeah, I love isometric. So the Copenhagen holds. There's also the abduction holds that we like to utilize as well. A lot of lateral movement. We can do maybe some lateral lunges, some bandage shuffles, stuff like that. Crossover steps. I think stuff to help them be more valuable to the game of basketball on their defensive end. So for me, our coach loves defense. So that's the only way you're gonna get on the court, right? We have our scores, but if you really want a difference, not just obviously at the NAI level, but a Division One level, a pro NBA defense is going to be everything. So
Well, I mean, you say that, but a lot of guys are criticizing the NBA nowadays that they're not playing as much defense anymore, right? So they're not heavily playing as deep, and there's more scoring.
right.
So how are you and your coach, combating what people are saying about, defense not being that important anymore?
Yeah, so for me, I realized that the NBA is an entertainment, right? They're not emphasizing the defensive end because they want fans love when they score. So for me, it's a totally different game. NAIA level where you don't have as many people obviously watching online or something like that. There's a lot of people in the stands. We harp on defense. That's our bread and butter, and that will continue to be our bread and butter. So for me, that's why it's important to kind of hit that in the weight room. Again, there was the playoffs and the championships and the game itself. I haven't watched it as much as I would like to, just because again, defense wins championships. That's true. So for me, I look at the NBA as an entertainment. People love to go up and down and score, but not at our level, right? We want to get stops and we want to score the basket. Very simple.
So for your guys, like, how are you helping them realize what it takes to get to the next level? And what are you seeing between the NBA and like what you have, like what you have in your athletes? That's the biggest difference to like getting to that point.
Yeah, there is some research papers that shows numbers as far as the squat jumps and assessments, and usually that'll be the first thing I show the guys. I write it on the board. Hey, if you would like to play professional basketball, here are the numbers you need to hit as far as your vertical, as far as maybe your squat or maybe your bench or stuff like that. And I just kind of compare it, and just so kind of give them an idea of like, hey, this is what we're going to work on. This is why we're working on it. Here's where you fall either from other Division One players or the pro level.
Okay. What is Coach Nate doing that's separating him from the rest of the industry?
Nothing, probably. I know for me, we all do very
You can't
similar
you can't
stuff.
say that, bro. I've,
Yeah,
I've, I've peeped the IG, I peeped everything that you're doing, and I see it,
right.
right? There's got to be something that's setting you apart, bro.
I think for me, the buy-in is there because I'm a players coach. I think I look good because my players look good. That's the only reason why I may look successful. I also realize that taking my ego out, it all comes down to how skillful and how talented your guys are. What I do obviously should complement the basketball court, and I realize that, and I think athletes appreciate that, right? So what we do for training, we just do some micro. We can talk about that in a little bit. But we do our microdosing, 15 minutes a day, 6 days a week, right? I don't kill them for an hour, hour and a half. I know the main thing is basketball, and I treat them like basketball players. So for me, the buy-in is there. On top of that, again, we do our microdosing, 15-minute lifts. Everybody has 15 minutes. So for me, the buy-in is there with that. It's done right before our practices. So again, the player buy-in is everything. I think we do similar exercises across the board. But for me, being a basketball player, again, I'm not going to load the guys too much. And I want them to play free, to feel good. To me, athlete feedback is everything. So for me, my program is tailored around athlete feedback and what the research says. And if athlete is not feeling a certain workout, then again, if that's the majority of it, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate that. So
So what is micro dosing before practice look like, and what isometrics are you really focusing on?
microdosing, I actually do. So essentially, instead of doing maybe 120 minutes, 2 days out the week, which equates to 2 days out the week during the season, I just take the same time and just do 15, 20-minute workouts right before practice. Now, they have different themes based around the game schedule. So we have an accessory theme, which is just kind of the smaller muscles. We have our kind of biceps, triceps, calves, a lot of body weight exercises. And then we have our strength exercises, which is a eccentric focus. I think that's important to still hit strength. In season, we have our speed and power days, which are done pre-game, which is 60 minutes before the game, before tip-off, we actually lift. And then we have our regeneration days, which are our mobility days, kind of feel good, get that range of motion day after the games. So that's for non-conference. The reason why I do that is because non-conference schedule is pretty chaotic. So we can play on a Monday and Tuesday, we can play on a Monday and a Sunday. So that's a little bit inconsistent. So when it comes to the conference, we play our opponents. I think practices are a little bit more intense just because those games matter a little bit more than those non-conference games. So it's the same concept as far as microdosing is concerned, 15, 20 minutes before practice. But instead of doing an accessory lift, we like to do our priming lifts, which are just ISOs. So like overcoming ISOs, yielding ISOs right before our second conference game. Isometrics play a big role in what we do from a tendon health perspective, from a tendon stiffness perspective. So we do a lot of ISOs, body weight ISOs, which is our yielding. Those are a little bit longer duration, 45 seconds to a minute. And then we have our short, heavy duration split squats, which are great for the knees. Those are 8 to 10 seconds. So ISOs, we do ISOs all year long, every single day.
Wow. And how have you seen this work for yourself? Because obviously you got to learn it from somewhere, you've got to experience it, you got to go through it. How have you learned that this is like good for your team, and how have you seen the benefits of it compared to doing heavier, like just waiting for the off days to kind of try to hit most of this stuff?
Yeah, two things. One, athlete feedback, right? That's important to me. Athletes feel good. To me, that's the best metric, right, that you can have as a coach. Hey, coach, I feel good today. What was that workout we did? To me, when I get out across the board, I know I've done my job. And then the second thing is player availability. I've been very fortunate to have zero soft tissue injuries, zero non-contact injuries since I took over the men's basketball program. So to me, that in itself, obviously, it seems to be I'm doing something right.
So who did you learn all this stuff from, right? Because there's got to be a place that you
Right.
take these pieces and parts and put it together to kind of develop your team. Where did you get this from to be able to apply it and actually learn what works best for your guys?
Yeah, so for me, I'm big on trying it on myself before I try it on a guy. So for me, I'm the guinea pig, right? I don't want to use the athletes as a guinea pig. I don't want to use walk-ons as a guinea pig. I don't want to use our JV program as a guinea pig. So for me, I'm the guinea pig. If I get hurt, that's on me. First and foremost, I was always going to come back to me. So I do all the exercises during the summer, and then I just kind of write down how I feel in my notes in my pad, and then hey, this is good, this is not good, this is too much volume, this is not enough volume. But other coaches like Corey Schlesinger, he's actually with the Detroit Pistons now. He was in Texas last year. He was in Phoenix Suns prior to that. He started a whole microdosing theme or brought it to light as far as like game day lifts and post game lifts. I think that was done actually before his time with the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. They were lifting on game days. So the concept of microdosing has always been there, but he brought it to light. And then people like Alex Natera, who's big on ISOs. That's where I get a lot of those ISOs from, those run specific ISOs. So I'm influenced by a lot of coaches. I take stuff from a lot of coaches. I ask questions. I just came back from Oregon, asking Cliff a lot of questions. So that's how I program my stuff.
And then on top of that, we're throwing in social media in there too, right? So obviously that's how we found you, right? That's how we seen everything that was going on and whatnot. How has social media played a role in your learning and your knowledge, but also just showing people the work that you've done?
Yeah, it's huge. Again, when I started off, I just wanted to be consistent. You notice that all of my stuff is never about me. I like to be in the back. I'm not the biggest guy on podcasts, but I feel like it's important because I just like to do my job and just go home. It's very simple. I don't like the limelight. I don't like all the extra stuff. So I was just being consistent with those posts. And guys like it. They want to be on the post just because now I have a big following. But again, that's allowed me to reach out to coaches that I look up to, just because now I have a pretty decent following, which is great. But social media, if you use it the right way, it can be used as a resume builder. and it can be used for you to reach out to coaches. So for me, I think that's my bread and butter. So I just do a simple post a week. But again, it's allowed me to connect with you, to get on other podcasts. It plays huge dividend for sure.
For sure. I mean, like I said, we went through your work and saw what you were doing. I'm like, man, I got to get this guy to come on and talk about what all is going on over there, because like you can watch a video, like it's easy to watch a video and try to take it, but like it's better to always learn from like what the video was about, why you were doing what you were doing, and also just learning from your background story, how you even got in that position to work with these high level guys and get at the university level.
Right.
On top of that, what's some advice? Because I know you gave some earlier. What would be your best piece of advice for coaches looking to, venture into the college sector or even just specialize in basketball training?
Yeah, I think what's important is research. I think for me, I'm able to do what I do because I know there's research behind it. And for me, it's a daily task. I'm a competitor, right? Obviously, you are too. So I like to compete. So the highest level that I want to get to is the NBA. What's going to separate me from other coaches that want to get those positions too? And I think again, sharpening my sword every single day, being entrenched in the research, has allowed me to maybe get a step ahead or try different things. I think first and foremost, I think that's probably the most important thing. I think you got to be a perfectionist in your craft and leave no detail unturned. And then the second thing is realize that everybody's got a story. Right. For me, I love the process. I know eventually I would like to move on from my position and be at a Power Five or NBA level. And I know it's just going to be consistency. And I know right now might not be the best time. But again, I don't want that to discourage myself or same thing with coaches. I think everybody has a different path. And as long as you're consistent, your time will come.
And how are you training the next person behind you to potentially take over your role?
Yeah, I tell them it's very easy. You just got to be consistent. We can look at a research. We can look at a research paper once a week, but that's not enough. I think it's the constant re-educating yourself and educating and taking courses and asking questions and being vulnerable and understanding that you don't have the best program. You don't have all the answers. So for me, just knowing that and me just being a sponge. So for me, I look at research as film study. That's my film study right there. And I always tell that to athletes. Film study is going to separate you, right? The skill set, the physical tangibles, I think that's great. But I think what also separates, to kind of circle back to that first question, what separates kind of those 1% NBA players is just obviously they take their craft very serious, but they watch a ton of film, even during the summer while they get a massage or something like that. I think it's very important to watch film. So I look at the research as my film study.
Man, Coach Nate, man, you dropped a lot of knowledge today that we didn't even know about. But before we even get out of here, man, we got our last final segment. One thing that I didn't prepare you for, it's a 90-second round, right?
All
It's
right.
10 questions, 90 seconds, one word answers, right? Are you ready for it?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, here we go. And 90 seconds on the clock. Favorite post-workout snack?
Shake.
One place in the world you want to go to see?
Puerto Rico.
Pizza or burger?
Burger.
Best basketball player?
Kobe.
Best athlete you've ever trained?
Each one more.
Sour candy or chocolate?
Chocolate.
Would you rather be courtside at the Olympic gold medal game or courtside at the NBA Finals Game 7?
Game 7 finals for sure.
Favorite pair of Jordans?
I'm not a Jordan guy.
What? A hooper, not a Jordan guy? What? Okay, what's better? Blocking a game-winning shot or hitting a three to win the game?
Hitting a 3 to win a game.
And that is it. Coach, we appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you so much for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule. And man, keep doing great work. All the hoopers out there, man, if you got a chance, even if you're not going to Weber International, reach out to Coach Nate, even on Instagram. He definitely answers. Don't worry. I know you see all the followers and you think that people don't answer on there. Coach Nate is on there. He answers questions that you have. And if you're trying to make it to the next level, definitely reach out to him because he's got a lot of knowledge in there. And Coach, thank you for being here with us tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.